What happens when you don't pay your taxes? Nothing is left of your body. Welcome to Warlock 2: The Exile, a game about traveling through time and space to give God a speeding ticket, full of alien civilizations, a morbidly obese rat, and the magical version of nuclear warfare. For today, we're going to be breaking its unfair, impossible difficulty with the power of crime and the federal government. Now, Warlock is a lot like Civilization, except instead of being historical, it's fantasy. Instead of passing policies, we cast spells. Instead of voting, we have exploding, and instead of exploring one world, we explore a universe of worlds. From life worlds to lava worlds to tropical worlds and even worlds filled with tanks. Wait, that's not part of Warlock. It's the sponsor of this video, World of Tanks. Do you like quality gaming? Are you a fan of explosions? And are you a remotely sane individual? Don't answer that. Then you'll love the World of Tanks. As a game of deep strategy, why would I use the massive gun on my tank when I have another weapon? And because you have teammates, if you ever make a mistake, don't worry, just blame them. It's like if we took everything you knew and loved and turned it into a tank, driving into the grocery store in a tank, grandma coming to visit with her tank, taking a nap, a tank nap. What? But wait, before you try and launch a crypto scam coin, the game is free on PC, where you can use my code, THEGRIMKLEAPER, to get the stupid, sexy Cromwell B tank. Hello, bro. 7 days of premium access, several rental tanks, and 250,000 credits. Now that is a lot of fart coin. But if you've already gone down the average male to interest in tanks pipeline and downloaded the game, you too get a slew of benefits. So just use the link in the description to truly experience a world of tanks. Okay, now, Warlock 2 begins with all the great mages of the multiverse, working to defeat the Dremor, a planet-eating swarm of extraterrestrial invaders. But while they were busy, this random guy showed up, cast a spell to become God, declared himself the United One, then proceeded to subjugate or exile everyone in the world, which leaves us to stop him. And of all the great mages we could be, from monarchs to demon lords to dragon overlords, we are the Chief Justice. To get an idea of who this man is, one of his landmark court decisions was during a child custody case. So you say you're the mother, and you say you're the mother. All of you are guilty. Your child is now owned by the state. Case closed. So the United One forcibly seizing power and enslaving all the great mages? That's not the problem. The issue is that he doesn't have a permit. And so begins our crusade to personally fight through the realms, come upon the United One, and obliterate him over a speeding ticket. Our faction's race is the Sparts, a sort of half-dwarf, half-Russian hybrid, where their society took a good look at capitalism and communism, then adopted the worst parts of both. For this video, I'm also using the Renaissance mod, which is basically a super DLC in of itself because it's just a fantastic expansion. If you ever think about playing this game, just use Renaissance. The other mods are interesting. Now, before we start, we get to customize our great mage with 10 trait points and multiple pages of options. They range from, here's a little more food, have some extra mana, and you are now an elder dragon. But something else we could do is force certain resources to start near us. So I chose an elven colony, dwarf settlement, and donkeys to spawn next to our capital. There will be a reason for this later, but partly because this difficulty requires a lucky spawn, and it took a few tries. All right, I can't be near water. That's a restart. Or water, great. Why is my only resource on a volcano? Water, hideous. Water. Okay, finally a good resource is what I would. As you might have noticed, the map of Warlock isn't exactly normal, with floating islands and radically different terrains. That's because each world is a shard world, a smaller mini world with other shard worlds connected via portals that eventually lead us to the last world, Ardania, and the United One. And unlike in Civilization, we start with our city pre-settled, so getting a bad spawn can be game ending on this difficulty. But after enough resetting, we got a spawn with the god tier resource I need, a pumpkin. Next to the second god tier resource, another pumpkin. Little known fact that wizards eat pumpkins for mana, as evidenced by the 4 food and 4 mana they give us. In the top left, you can see we have gold, food, mana, and research. Gold is for training and upgrading units, food is for city growth, mana is for spell casting, and research is for discovering new spells, because we do have the power to cast spells, even if we shouldn't. Because fart units are so slow, our starting ranged unit can summon birds to scout for us. Our warriors almost died to the local sorority, until their last remaining member was persuaded to not commit crime. Going back to our capital, as cities in Warlock grow in population, the borders also increase. Levels 1 through 4 means 1 tile out, 4 through 9 means 2 tiles out, and 10 plus is 3 tiles out. So we want to plan our future cities accordingly. Every level we can build another building, so I put a trading post on our donkey resource, then employed the local dwarf population. It's like a worker co-op, where the workers own the company, and I own the workers. My advisor also gave me a quest to build a harbor, a helpful building, considering there is no water in our entire world. What we do have are giant mutated cockroaches. On each world is a series of monster layers, kind of like Civ barbarians, but sometimes they can be a lot stronger. As part of our difficulty, I turned up these layers to their maximum, so each shard world is going to be infested. And speaking of shard worlds, we'd found the portal to the next. It's cursed, and to uncurse it, I could hire the Mages Guild. But seeing as that actually costs money, I just brute forced it by reading random stuff on the walls until it worked. Sure, my people are now cursed, but that's a sacrifice I could afford to make. By entering the portal, we're greeted with the next shard world, a life world. As per the name, it's a great place to get mauled by a bear. Ironically, much safer than the life world is the death world. But through exploring, we found an elven village and mysterious mist. Each resource gives at least one building option found in the building tree, and the building tree is quite large, or some of the buildings are kind of completely insane. Unlike in Civ, in Warlock there's a cap on how many cities you can have at once, so building next to powerful resources is a necessity. As we progress through the shard worlds, the later ones have stronger resources, exchanging something like extracting iron for adamantium, or eating pumpkins for inhaling uranium fumes. The tantalizing prospect of eating green rocks also attracted our first hero. These are unique units getting special abilities as they level, with ours being a druid slash bear summoner slash guy with pickaxe, I don't know. In hiring Bear Man, we can also equip him with artifacts, then send him to the front lines. And in Warlock, heroes are pretty good. After clearing out the last monster dens in our capital world, I founded a second city, which got visited by a traveling merchant. With prices as high as his, it was almost criminal to not steal from him. Back in the life world, our druid was gaining experience in genociding the local wildlife. One of the reasons he does so much damage is his damage type, elemental damage. I'll explain this in more depth later, but just know that different units have different damage types and resistances. So a spirit unit might be immune to spirit magic, but an undead unit might be weak to life magic. So if you really think about it, I'm just healing people with death magic. In the life world, it just so happened that we stumbled upon the portal to the next shard world, and we're still killing the wildlife. Even with the next shard world available, I wanted to fully explore and settle the life world first, especially after stumbling upon the magic fields and herbs, two extremely powerful resources. Our capital was also printing insane amounts of money, so I decided to rename it something a little more fitting. If only there was a building that let us make even more money, maybe some kind of elven casino with plus 75% income. Our second city was able to use the nearby iron to build a foundry, granting us a masterwork armor perk. What are perks? Well, they're basically the way that we break the game. Different buildings, resources, and quest chains grant us perks. These are upgrades that we can apply to our units, whether they be basic warriors, summons, or heroes. Perks have a limit on how many different units they can be on at once, which for masterwork armor is 5, plus they cost money to apply. But there is no limit to how many different perks you can have on one unit. Right now, this isn't really a factor. I just equipped our druid with the masterwork armor to increase missile and melee resistance. But as more perks become available, things start to get a little silly. Plus, without these perks, our poor basic warriors are slightly outmatched. I managed to found our third city in the life world, next to a plethora of resources. Also founded was a fourth city, back in the capital world and right on the edge of the map. Now, for a normal city, this would be a waste, but we can actually turn this into one of several special cities, all of which don't contribute to our city limit, so we can have any number of them. Free cities make food and gold, fortress cities have powerful attacks, and temple cities make mana and increase relations with a specific god. Here we can see the 8 different gods, with our priority being the god Dauros. I haven't talked much about the spell tree, but it's fairly extensive. By researching 4 spells in a group, we can move on to the next group. The top bar is mostly combat oriented, the middle bar is utility, terraforming, and summoning oriented, and the bottom bar is god specific spells. By having high relations with a given god, we can research and use their spells, with Dauros having by far some of the most broken spells later in the tech tree. We can subtly increase our relations by making entire cities worship him. I wouldn't call it a cult, just a community where you worship something, and you can't leave. Next to our life city, besides all the resources, was another surprise, a Dremmer City. If you recall those universe-eating creatures I mentioned at the start of the game, that's them, the ones dying to a tree. Below their city is the portal to another shard world, being a lava world. Monsters after World 2 start to scale pretty hard, especially in a lava world, so I wanted to develop our empire a little more first before I went through. Besides, I had another world I needed to enter first, the portal to the human world. Making up the entire map, there are a lot of shard worlds. One of them is our home world, and most of the rest are inhabited only by monsters. But 5 others are home worlds to the rest of the great mages. And connected to this life world is the human faction. Led by a criminal mastermind, this human society looks a lot like our own. Everybody is poor, nobody has rights, and their leader is also a massive dick. I just want to trade spells, but no, you're too good for that. You won't live long at this rate. Look, you might be a crime lord, but you're just a level 1 Al Capone compared to my level 100 IRS. Demanding money from me? No, that's my thing. I wasn't very concerned with fighting the humans, considering their entire army was dying to a single idle troll. My crossbows could pick off any stragglers and then get mauled by bears. So I got some Dremmer warriors to back them up. You'd think life worlds would be a lot nicer, but they're really just a game of chance where every dice roll is the number of bears that will maul you. Oh look, another portal. Surely it can't be worse than here. You know, my expectations were low, but not low enough. Every tile has minus 50% production, the world is infested with hostile Dremmer, oh, and it also damages all your stuff every turn. So now our next world options are the lava world, the universe-eating aliens world, or the human world, which just so happens to be on the edge with a 1-tile choke point. On the other side of the life world was our druid, charged with protecting the local wildlife by eradicating it. In giving him masterwork armor, we could boost his melee and range resistance, plus leveling him up to give him a new powerful spell, Throw Pickaxe. Right now, our entire army was being propped up by this one guy. Even the life-consuming Dremmer warriors ran into a slight problem. Nearby, our occupied Dremmer city had broken into mass protests. Turning the warlock version of Zerg into picket line union strikers has gotta be a serious achievement. But I learned from the best on how to talk with unions, so I burned the whole city down. We'd need some better units to actually fight the humans, which is why I'd unlock Rune Warriors, melee infantry with low health but high resistances that can get buffed with runes. In the meantime of recruiting them, my druid was holding the line. Of all the things he could summon, what would be the scariest? So let's zoom out a little. Remember that our ultimate goal is to get to Ardania and defeat the United One. But what I didn't mention is that he's not alone. Besides the other 5 great mages, there are also 4 lieutenants that will try to stop us. And the first challenger...
The new spell research is complete.
By his order, but we are tired. We know. Our nephew will do it. Farewell then.
Now, let's set the stage. You're a dragon, and this guy's nephew. You look to your left, you look to your right, you look down, and think to yourself, why are there 100 statues of this guy? First of all, that's my religion, dick. And part of my religion is strapping each of them with magical rocket launchers. Fandrel's 2-headed nephews have decided to hotbox my capital world, repeatedly. I'm sure the citizens are doing fine. Tendril's nephews, on the other hand, not so much. With enough dark magic, anything is possible. I even solved my starvation problem. Raise your hand if you need food. And of course, to neatly wrap everything up, now rats were eating my people. So I did what any great leader would do. I teleported them to distant lands. With Tendril's intervention dealt with, we'd still have 3 more lieutenants to fight off later. Whereas in the meantime, I'd recruited our first rune warriors in the life world. Dwarven muscle mommies versus human soldiers. If the internet has taught me anything, it's that one man's death is another man's fantasy. These armored ladies have extremely high melee resistance, so a full melee attack, 2 damage. And now, thanks to my Life World city, I could upgrade them from woman to woman 2. As my 3 female viewers can confirm, they shoot fireballs out of their hands. Go ahead, break out of that corner. I dare you. With the sheer volume of dead units, you'd imagine we're pretty close to breaking through the portal. We are not. At the start of the game, I mentioned we were playing on the highest difficulty, but what does that actually mean? Well, that would be this. Now, if you don't understand what this means, don't worry. There's only a few important pieces. 10% more damage and 50% more critical hit chance are the tame ones. The problem arises with this one, 4 times resource production. Compared to the cheating AIs of some of the other strategy games, that might not sound like a ton, but when you factor in buildings that give an additional 50%, 75%, 100% more income food food, mana, research, whatever, my unit production is limited by money, and my spell casting is limited by mana. I have 700 mana and 1300 gold. Krell, while asking for a peace treaty, has 17,961 gold and mana to spare. The AI has transcended our pathetic earthly limitations. Krell will produce from every city non-stop with no regard to cost or upkeep and cast as many spells as allows each turn. Let me be clear, the game was not made for this difficulty, and we haven't even seen the other great mages. To give you a more practical idea of what happens, when I passed a turn, Krell has catapulted so many units through the portal, the game doesn't even know where to put them, so it just flings them onto random tiles. And trust me, this is a mild case. It gets so much worse later. Our Druid Doomslayer had single-handedly pickaxed entire armies to death, and now was facing down an opposing enemy hero. But undead super warrior or not, nobody is immune to getting firebolted in the balls. The humans had also declared war on the local bird population, and if human history has shown us anything, whenever we declare war on birds, we lose. And this was no exception, forcing me to rescue their people by fighting the evil birds, then burn their city to the ground. Back in the capital, things had significantly improved, and by improved, I mean there are now giant cockroaches eating my people. They're so great, I decided to share them with the rest of the world. I teleported them to distant lands. So while we prepare our forces to enter the human world, let's talk about research and spell casting, specifically enchantments. As I mentioned before, the research tree in Warlock is the spell tree, with spells that do all kinds of random stuff. But some of these spells are enchantments, spells with lasting effects that don't go away, but cost mana each turn to maintain. The first 3 enchantments we get are for boosting resistances for melee, ranged, and elemental damage. There are 6 types of damage: melee, ranged, life, death, spirit, and elemental. If we look at these rune 4 women, we can see they're resistant to these 3 and weak against these 3. Because units can do multiple damage types at once, having strong resistances to everything is absolutely essential to the late game. This is where both enchantments and perks come in, being the main way we scale our units. So I enchanted our druid with everything we had so far to boost his survivability. We cleared out the remaining humans, prepared to enter the portal, and say hello to Elpister the Eternal, 2nd Lieutenant of the Great Mage, possibly the best spellcaster, and definitely the most baked.
Good day to you, colleague. As you must be understanding by now, the United One won't let you reach Ardania.
Instead of being like Tendril and sending units, he's a lot lazier and a lot more annoying. Elpister just casts terraforming spells at random across your empire. Sometimes he's actually beneficial, and sometimes he just submerges your capital. The thing is, he's so lazy we don't even need to beat him.
Cast a spell that I don't know, and I will leave you alone.
That might not sound too bad, but there's a slight issue. Elpister knows every spell. That's like a 4chan user asking you to tell them a slur they haven't used. It's impossible, which means we're gonna need to create our own, starting with breaking into these guys' house, something my Iron Ladies are more than capable of. This frees a local witch who's willing to sell us the spell, and like any good government contractor, it is vastly overpriced. To get the money, I cleared out some of the monster dens, like a random dragon that spawned next to my capital. Capturing the nest gave some mana, and Armageddon, a spell that is on the spell tree at the very end. So when I go through the human portal, okay, that's not really what I was hoping for. So when I go through the human portal, we get to do this. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you win a nuclear arms race, by skipping to the end. So while my druid firebombs this city, let's go back to our cities. By stacking tax offices, mints, and banks in our capital, we were now making an insane amount of money. Money I used to pay off that witch. I always knew you were the greatest mage in all of the world. I don't actually have it. Oh, she did have it. It's just over here. You know, you really need to put the important information first. Like how many people are complaining about flies in the capital? Another pest invasion, huh? I teleported them to distant. Okay, so apparently distant lands is this guy's house. Shadowbolt? A reward for ruining that man's life was a xenophobe talisman. How fitting. At least his fate was better than being in the human realm, getting AoE'd every single turn because my opponent has infinite mana. The only positive was that they bombed their own stuff, allowing me to take the first city. All we had left to do was conquer the capital, which eliminates the human great mage from the game. Here's the thing though, capitals are really, really strong. I summoned some bears and moved them a little closer. Instant AoE one-shot. Virtually all of our units would die in 1 or or 2 hits from the capital, meaning I needed something tanky to draw aggro. And it just so happened that we could get it through the spell to stop Elpester. Of course, he had to rain on my parade first, and by that I mean drown thousands in a mass flood that nearly destroyed the Federal Reserve. But hey, at least I can build that harbor now. In killing the Whirlpool Leviathan, we get the one spell that Elpester doesn't know. And what's the last thing this neckbeard would think of? A spell he couldn't possibly conceive of. Rocky, the Rainbow Dragon. A summon spell that, when completed, lets me summon a single powerful and tanky dragon. It also makes Elpester return to eating Cheetos and moderating subreddits instead of nuking my cities with water. Meanwhile, our Rainbow Boy was still being nuked, but with fire. Utilizing our druid's healing and using our rune women to eradicate all human life, turn after turn after turn of Rocky getting bonked, blasted, AoE'd, and shadow bolted. There were so many spells the ground turned into raw mana, but somehow Rocky survived, and Krell's capital was eventually taken, eliminating him from the game. 1 out of 5 great mages down, 4 more to go. By taking a human city, we get access to its buildings and units, but much like people in real life, they kinda suck. With Krell dead, that makes all his other cities become neutral. Neutrality that has never stopped me before. Even so, somehow, right before he died, he started a quest. A quest that has a boss fight he never completed. How do I know this? Well, it has something to do with the 167 HP Snow Queen who spawned in the desert. But don't worry, because Krell in his infinite wisdom had decided to try and fix the problem by spawning a second Snow Queen. I don't know how that's possible, but it must be a very progressive kingdom. Either way, I have a Rainbow Dragon and a new hero. He doesn't really have any magical or special powers, he's just a guy with a pickaxe, but pit that against an army of hungry vampires, and apparently it wins. In the life world, we'd run into the issue of an insane number of monsters spawning. Shadow bolting and pickaxe throwing dragons was fine, but I had a more permanent solution. Of course, the only thing that can survive a magical nuclear explosion is a bear. So by this point, we'd pretty much wrecked the human world, colonized the life world, and fully settled our capital world. Temples and free cities can't be less than 3 tiles away from each other, but if I just give some settlers temporary levitation, we could get a little creative. Our choice was either the lava portal or the Dremmer one. Considering the Dremmer portal kept spewing out enemies our foreman had to periodically pickaxe, that seemed like the best choice. And just as I was about to go in,
So, a great
The new
mage
spell research
might
is
be
complete.
strong.
that is the Empress, an immortal necromancer lich and 3rd lieutenant of the United One. She creates lich mirrors, which are undead spawning portals at our capital, our life world, and the former human world. These mirrors are a terrifying— oh, would you look at that? One spawned next to my Rainbow Dragon. That one spawned near my capital. That one made some skeletons next to my rune ladies. And this one made the mistake of messing with Minecraft Steve. That's another one and another one.
Come here. Why do you disappoint me? Second by second, you waste my time.
Right, so what else did I have to do today? Ah, yes, alien hell. If I could sum up the Dremmer world in one word, it would get me demonetized. Whoever we send in first has to be able to tank enormous damage. Our Rune 4 women are pretty decent. Our Druid is a little better. The Rainbow Dragon has a lot of health. But John Foreman, he has 97% melee damage reduction, 93 missile, and 88 life, among others. And we need it, because in sending him through the portal, all non-Dremmer units take damage every turn here. Those Rune 4 women who cleaved through most human units died in 1 hit to a mage. Any Dremmer soldiers dealing melee damage, that's not an issue. It's the magic attacks that cause most of the trouble. At this stage in the game, the best way to avoid dying is to kill the other guy faster. Or summon bears and let them get fireball, that works too. Even some of our tankier units can die to an unlucky chain of attacks. I would use more spells, but I may or may not have spam clicked through the notifications, accidentally hit an event, and spent 2,500 mana on something I didn't need. The most expensive dwarves in the world and their combat skills fall a little short. The only benefit of the Dremmer world is its resources. Nerville for some of the strongest armor available, ancient dig sites, and a holy ground for special god units. Raising all the Dremmer cities meant I'd need a smart city for the resources. Fortunately, monsters don't naturally spawn in this world, so by raising every single city and full clearing the map, the only thing that could kill my people now is getting there. It's like dying from dysentery on the Oregon Trail, except in this case, the land just eats you. I had to give them levitation and research a god-specific terraforming spell just just so they could walk 3 tiles. I nearly finished the top research bar, so I had access to an insane number of damage spells and a few enchantments, like this fire weapon enchant. Damage plus 50% elemental magic. That gives us an extra 50% damage on a unit in the form of elemental damage. Then there's an ice weapon enchant plus 20%, plus level ups give more damage too, like this plus another 50% damage, bringing the druid to 136 base damage. That's enough to kill 6 of our starting warriors at the same time, and we're not even done. There's a few resistance enchantments, a lifesteal damage enchant, and most importantly, Shield of Dauros, the max level spell for Dauros that adds an insane amount of resistance. In the meantime of researching up that, we cleared the rest of the Dremor, got some monster spawns, then discovered a portal to a shadow world. That means our options are either go through the shadow world or go through the lava world. And after sending some birds into the shadow world, I do not want to be here. So lava world it is. Okay, I might have made a mistake. Welcome to hell, again. Every enemy here is just like the Dremor, except they do more damage, have more health, and why is there a smart city here? Yes, help me, my people. Help me. Okay, that did not happen. Lava worlds really just have an abundance of powerful enemies and sulfur, neither of which we need. More in demand was a 3rd and 4th hero. Using the repeatable spell called Call of Suzerain, we roll the dice every turn to recruit a new hero. Our first was a Death Baron, who sounds strong, but he's only a usual level hero, the lowest rank like our Foreman and Druid. But one turn of rolling later, we got Gamra, the Fire Mind. As far as legendary heroes go, he looks exactly as badass as you'd think. Armed with his trusty Talisman of Xenophobia, my race's Sky Turtle had just about completed our super team of all 4 parts of the political compass. Even with all the insane buffs we could give our heroes, there was still one more thing to make them truly invincible: the Shield of Dauros, the very last enchantment of the Dauros spells, requiring a maxed relationship and functioning as the endgame enchantment, plus 50 resistance to all damage types. In practice, this helps the most with spirit and death resistance, since it's difficult to increase them, but there is a weakness. All our enchantments are ridiculously insane and overpowered buffs can be taken away in one swoop by dispelling them. A super cheap, super easy to cast spell that removes all enchantments. Or it would if I wasn't worshipping Dauros, because the nail in the coffin is spell lock, our final enchantment that locks the enchantments on our characters and makes them completely immune to any dispels. So it wasn't very surprising when we were nearly one-shotting tormentors, capturing the lava world settlement, then forcing them to build the settlers that would replace them and demolish their city. We had executed every single denizen only to realize the lava world was a dead end. To be fair, it was a lava world, so I probably made their life better. So now we have the shadow world left and a tropical world portal. Considering a giant robot just walked out of the shadow portal and blasted the length of Germany, we tried the shadow world. It's dark, it's scary, and it's no match for a flying xenophobic turtle who gained the ability to enlighten people. Life-changing, I'm sure. The shadow world primarily has spirit damage, and because of our Shield of Dauros, we were able to speed through fairly quickly, wipe out all the cities, clear every monster, and come upon the portal to the second to last world in the game, a Nadra, which is a mirror world to Ardania. Very clever, devs. But the moment we head in, we'll face the 4th lieutenant and begin the final quest chain. And before doing any of that, I wanted to defeat the other AI players. So I colonized the shadow world, started bottling uranium into something, gave everyone adamantium armor, and went through the only portal available, the tropical world. Oh, well, there's the Drummer Queen player, and she has 488,000 gold. How many units are even over here? Oh my good god. There's more? What? There's another player over here? Everything is raw magic. They've been bombing each other for 100 turns. This is gonna suck, isn't it? All right, we're at the portal, so we should be good. Wait, you've gotta be. This is what my turn looks like. They're just teleporting more units. I'm playing a tower defense game.
Oh, we're so sorry to hear about your brother that passed away. Boom! 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 Boom!
The Great Mage has been defeated.
So, that was 2 hours I'm never gonna get back. A short recap. 2 AI players are now dead, my druid became Jesus, I recruited this elven loser lord, killed some floating goblins, some floating werewolves, and what would be the entire population of Luxembourg, and had to watch as the drummer queen took one turn and used it to fill up the whole map with units. She had 500,000 gold. All the while I had actually missed a Death World portal in the very corner of the Shadow Realm. I initially wondered why it was empty. Then I discovered this guy and this girl who had been locked in eternal conflict for 228 turns. Instead of going through another Hall of the Mountain King montage, I realized that the AoE for some spells is so large you could friendly fire without declaring war. You must be more careful over area spells. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Overdoing it a second time. Now, I could just sit here and kill both of them like this, but I actually found the reason that none of them have died yet. Both have infinite mana, both can't make any progress, and apparently both don't have many spells. Here's Armageddon. So now that I've brokered a lasting peace, all we have left is Ainadra, Ardania, and the United One. Rocky, Bearman, Xenophobic Turtle, Immortal Lich I just picked up, don't worry about that, this loser elf guy, and John Foreman. Wearing his iconic 5 sets of armor, 10 different enchantments, 12 level up perks, 4 different types of weapons, lifesteal on every attack, teleportation, uranium addiction, and a pickaxe powered by the Mark of Satan. Heading through the portal to Ainadra, I use some magic to find our target, the Citadel of Amberon the Dark, last lieutenant of the United One.
You've come this far, but in vain.
A new spell
The
has
United
been
One is
researched.
With a host of units who decided to make my life easier by standing next to each other, for some reason all these buffs affect AoE abilities of my heroes too. So 400 damage fire tornado? Yeah, that sounds about right. But those are baby numbers compared to Mr. Foreman walking up to the big evil castle, swinging his pickaxe, and deleting it from the game. One last portal to Ardania to fight the United One. A fight that comes in the form of, once again, his 4 lieutenants, Fandral, Elphister, the Empress, and Amberon, meaning that by killing them, we would win the game.
Why are you so reckless? Why do you rush to your doom? Out of vengeance, out of bravery, or out of stubbornness? Watch and learn.
With the United One's lieutenants dead and his avatar dispelled, we could achieve victory over all of Ardania, leaving only one world left to conquer. The world of tanks! That's right, you thought I forgot. Oh, click the link, click it right now, play the game. Link in description.